Do you get triggered in situations where you really wish that your reactions can be different? Do we actually have a choice to respond instead of reacting? Is there any mechanism that we can use? All of these questions are answered in today's conversation. This was a video that was already shot in the live. I'm making a re-recording of this because for some reason we couldn't save it. So here we are, day 11 of our Instagram live anti-anxiety social initiative called Calmsutra in the lockdown. So every day we come up with 21 different topics. No, every day we come up with one topic, and that whole initiative will go on for 21 days. And the whole idea of this initiative is to give you a different perspective each day at a time to look at the problems that you're dealing with, especially in situations which are so challenging. So if you haven't signed up yet for this particular initiative, the link is aditisurana.com/lockdown21. This is an ongoing emailer thing. So once you sign up, we'll send you all the emailers in the sequence. So let's get to today's topic. What are triggers and why do we get triggered, and what is so difficult about them that we cannot control? That's very interesting. Triggers may happen because of the way we were brought up, because we looked at certain behavior while growing up. We picked up that as a survival mechanism, as our, instinctive mechanism to not fall a prey to the same situation over and over again. So because somebody behaved with you in a particular manner, insulted you as a child, you realize that I need to defend myself, and while growing up or after you have turned this adult, you absolutely keep behaving in the same manner in order to protect yourself. So there is a mechanism, there is a reason why triggers are so important and why they're essential when it comes to our instinctive behavior, right? So for your mind, the fundamental biggest objective is to keep you safe, not let you fall a prey physically or emotionally or in any other manner. So in order to protect you, it builds all these walls, trigger being one of them. Now let's understand how we can build our mechanism to go beyond our triggers, because most of the time, let's accept it, when we are being triggered, our reactions are uncontrollable, they're stupid, they are not necessarily helpful, but we keep doing it. So if you think of a few triggers, you will find that your reaction in the triggered moment, those reactions are pre-decided, they're pre-designed, and with or without your knowledge, you keep falling back on the same path. So as if somebody can press a button and they can just expect a performance. Now, if someone hacks that mechanism for you, they know which button to press for you to get all perturbed, all angry, or reactive, or irritated, and then you keep blaming the same person for having that ability to press my buttons. How could you do it? If you don't want them to do it, then one option that you have in your hands is not to get triggered. But we give responsibility of our experience in other people's hand. In short, you create these very beautifully carved and crafted remote controls. You put a huge red button and with other multiple small red buttons around them, and keep handing it over to strangers, to family members, to bosses, to colleagues, to anybody and everybody that you interact with. And then they stand there, they press that button knowingly, unknowingly, intentionally, in a very cunning manner, if at all, I don't know, but whatever, for whatever reason, they press that button and you land up reacting in a manner that is uncontrollable for you. For example, graphologically speaking, people who have defiance in their handwriting, it's a trait that we find in a lowercase k. So imagine you're writing a sentence, you write, I love cake. Now in cake, you're supposed to have lowercase k because that's how grammatically it's supposed to be. But if someone writes that k as a capital K, then that becomes your way of looking at defiance as a problem. Now people who have defiance as a problem cannot handle authority. Anybody who speaks with them in an authoritative manner, their first instinctive reaction is to revolt, is to be defiant, not agree with them, and all of that put together. Now if that is your concern, then in an authoritative manner, if somebody is trying to help you, you won't take the help because you will react to to the trigger of being spoken to in a rude, authoritative manner. Now, you might have your personalized trigger. Somebody's behavior, repeating your instructions again and again can be your trigger of like feeling that the person doesn't value you. Certain things are not done in your manner, in your preferential ways, then you think the person is trying to do this to aggravate you. Now, your triggers could be anything. Make a list of few of them and pick 3 really important ones. Now I'm going to give you an example, okay, with this whole trigger thing. The other day I was cooking for my family, and it was an elaborate meal, and I was like working really hard because everybody had their own preferences. I'm very happy to do that. Sunday meals is my thing, right? So I cook every Sunday and try to cook even more, but whenever I get time. But Sundays are like special meal time, like something we look forward to. Now that day when I was cooking, I made lasagna, and I wanted that to be served at a particular temperature because I wanted to make sure that they enjoy the meal. And so 30-40 minutes before that, before I could serve it, I started telling my sister and my best friend to set the table. And they're like, yeah, I will do it. But they were very busy doing important things like choosing the show on Netflix. And they're like, oh my God, it's important. We don't want to waste our Sundays. So all of that was happening simultaneously. By the time I was done, and I pulled my lasagna out of the oven and I walked outside on the dining table, I want to keep it, and I saw the table is not set now, which meant that they would take 5-7 minutes more, and that means I won't be able to achieve my significant task of serving the lasagna at the right temperature. I couldn't have done that. So in order to make sure that they enjoy the food well, what I did, I lost my cool. I'm like, how could you do this? And I told you, and you're supposed to, and blah, 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 blah. I just had like this big tantrum reaction, and I served little food on my table, on my plate, and I walked away. I stormed away from that room and came into my office. Now, while this was happening, obviously, the very moment I left the room, they found this behavior so funny, so they kind of started laughing in a very low volume so that I don't get to hear that. But the other aspect that happened was a part of me was telling me, while I was taking my steps to my office from the dining area, a part of me was telling me, but the food is there. It's still hot, and you will have to go back to serve yourself again. Now, this is what I'm trying to bring to your attention, that when, and I realized that all of this was happening while I was, in that dramatic mode while journaling. So it took 5-7 minutes for me to kind of understand how stupid my behavior was and, change it and go back and eat with them. And then they obviously teased me a lot till cows came home, but that's a different part. But the point I'm trying to make here is, when you are actually in this reactive mode, most people believe that my job is to stop my reaction while it is happening. In that hot moment, when I'm like really losing my calm, it's not going to happen. Whether you like it or not, this is how we function. But we have a possibility to alter our behavior by training our minds in a different manner. And what is that? Reviewing or choosing different responses. And this is where journaling comes really handy. So for today's journaling question, I want you to think of 3 triggers. We have so many of them. Each one of us have like this long list of triggers that we carry. So just choose 3. And I'm not choosing one because we have so many. Just let's bring some variety to the conversation. So choose 3 triggers and ask yourself this journaling question. When I think of these triggers, it could be 1 or 2 or whatever, but when I think of these triggers, each trigger at a time, what alternate responses can I choose from? So what are those other options do I have? So in that moment, when you are being spoken to in an authoritative manner, can I ask myself, what point is this person trying to make? Is it about this person's insecurity that he has to look like a bully or authoritative person? If so, what can I do? If not, what else can I choose? So when you start looking at people and their behavior, and if you have these responses thought through, then in the moment of reaction, slowly and steadily, when you are triggered, you can choose from one of those options. But the problem is, we don't sit and do this exercise. We literally feel, this is how I behave when I'm angry, this is what I do when I'm short-tempered or I'm irritated. Now, I have seen couples, they can fight with the world for one another when it comes to getting married or dealing with financial crisis or even health issues. But They get on each other's nerves when it comes to putting the toilet seat up or down, folding the napkins in one style or another, keeping certain things in a particular manner or not. Now, we really drive other people crazy because we have all these triggers about things should be done in this specific manner. Now, if you look at what other options do you have when it comes to responding to this situation, and all of them, in different manner, you'll be more equipped to walk into the same journey and not really going crazy. Now, the work that I'm talking about is done mainly, this whole concept of response versus reaction was brought to light by a German psychiatrist. His name is Viktor Frankl, and he was a Jew person, and his family was killed in front of his own eyes, and then he was imprisoned, and when he was in the detention camp, he was physically tortured, emotionally. Obviously, it was not not a space for anybody to live, and that is something I could think of as the closest option, closest possibility to the situation that we are in. We are confined in different manner, imprisoned in a way, and we do not know how to deal with everything that is happening around us. So what he did, which was very interesting, he said, people who are trying to torture me, or people, the situation around me is something I do not have any control over. But I have control over what is happening in here. So in order to have a complete control over how he wanted to look at situations, he altered his behavior, he altered his mental way of responding to the situation, until the World War II got over and he could come out and write about it and speak about this concept called proactivity. So proactivity concept, you might have heard about this before. They say, okay, if you have a ball in your hand, you throw it, it comes back with equal speed, all the physics principles. It comes back, and that is reactive behavior. But if you're not a wall, and if you're a human being, and if somebody throws a ball at you, you can catch the ball and you can decide whether you want to throw it back, you want to keep it and not throw it all, or throw it in different direction. Now that is your ability to respond and not react. Reaction is like a wall, it came my way and I threw it back because I should be. And responding is having an option to choose from, and that's what we are doing. So think of 3 situations where you get triggered and trigger drives you crazy, and then write down all these 3 responses by asking this question: when I get triggered, when I have all these things taking a hold of me, what 3 alternate responses can I choose from? And for each trigger, think of 3 different situations, 3 different responses. Okay. Now, let me also talk about this whole idea that triggers get to us because mostly in relationships, they create these barriers which are otherwise not seen. Most of the time, when you say, okay, but what do? I feel helpless in the moment. Agreed. But when you have this whole idea thought through, then you won't feel as helpless, because you will have that internal help and you will feel more equipped. Now, how do we create this breather moment? One, of course, journaling and building that understanding and having those options. Another very, very powerful tool to do that, and I can count on it every day, is the Calmsutra S-stroke practice. When you do this practice in the way it is designed, breath coordinated, and if you're new here, you'll be like, what S-stroke practice? I'll show you. We're going to turn the camera and I'm going to show you. But if you do this practice of feeling calm and composed and connected, you will realize that the whole journey of reaction, that whole timing of losing your calm and behaving in a certain manner will become prolonged, which means between your reaction and between your trigger and your reaction, you will have a breather, and that breather is the space, a platform where you can choose from multiple options, creating a response which is required. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Now, when you're being triggered, definitely your mind is not at its best. So what we will call this whole mechanism, remember that principle I keep talking about, when your body is helpless, lead from your mind. But when your mind is useless, lead from your body. So when your mind is getting all triggered and does not know how to go about it, we're going to begin from the body, which is a graphotherapy practice. So give me a moment, I'm going to switch my camera and let's get to the stroke practice. Let's do it together. Now when you do this practice, the most important aspect is to follow the 5 instructions that we keep talking about. Now I've done some part of it in the live conversation. I'm going to just continue the practice for you to connect with it so that you understand what we are getting into. So the S stroke is, or the Calmsutra practice, is about getting your mind to feel the flow of your own thoughts. Now it's called technically flow of thoughts. That's the technical name of this graphotherapy. It begins with the stroke on the top, it ends on the bottom like this. All loops must be open, and the flow is what we focus on. So if your hand stops, you pick up your pen and you start again. If your hand stops, you pick up your pen and you start again. That's how we're going to go about it. And the fifth point here, which is the most important point, is make sure that when you do this practice, you breathe slightly longer than your normal breath. Don't get into deep breathing. We just want slightly longer breath than your normal breathing. Okay? So, yeah, that's even better. So let's look at the stroke formation and how to go about it. Keep breathing slightly deeper. I call it handwriting meditation because so many times while doing the stroke, you get into this meditative state, and the idea here is not to focus, not to fight your thoughts, but actually just get your attention. Even if your mind is muddled right now, just get your attention on your movement of the stroke and on your breathing. With your drifting mind, one of the thoughts will be to get your attention back here. With that thought, simply come back and start the practice again. Really, we're going to look at like a stroke at a time. We're going to make sure that you give your 100% to this stroke formation, each stroke formation. It's not about how long the stroke goes. It's actually about how involved are you with it. So breathe slightly longer than normal. When you're doing the stroke, just be involved with the practice, and that's the most important part. And that is you'll be surprised, but that's your pause building mechanism in the situation. How it works, why it works, there are graphological reasons for this particular stroke to work. So can you practice any other letter? No. Is this letter S? No, actually. It is a formation which is of a connected stroke formation. Okay, so continue doing this practice, complete your page, you know the procedure, think of the question, do entire page of a stroke practice, set a timer for just 15 minutes and then respond to the question. Okay, that is a mechanism that we follow. That process is called grapho journaling. Now my request to you is make sure that you remain as honest as possible when it comes to your journaling responses. There is no point to prove, there is nobody watching. It's you and your reaction, you and your triggers, you and your responses. So when we build this mechanism, it is something that you can count on for life. Okay, so journaling mechanism obviously can be a companion throughout, but also these reaction and responses kind of thinking, that would also help. Tomorrow I will meet you with one more topic at 4 p.m. The conversation will start. Lastly, before I say goodbye, make sure if you haven't registered, the link is aditisurana.com/lockdown21. There are other resources that we have created for people to have better connection with this whole process, and you can find all those resources on the emailer list, so we can send you all of that. So on that note, happy writing, and I'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Bye bye.